right. All right. How's that? I had 2 buttons. You think I could figure out 2 buttons? Okay. All right. So this is our Wyndham Park Citizens in Action Committee. We're trying to work to make our neighborhood, our Wyndham Park neighborhood better for all of you and for all of us that live here. We have some goals that we try to meet, and we want to eliminate disparities. We want to create a community that we all feel connected and safe. We want to develop complete neighborhoods, and we're pursuing a healthy environment. So that's kind of what our goals are. Want to move to the next slide? So that's our agenda for today. It's not good. We'll hopefully get everybody out of here by like 4 in the morning. That's okay. Depends how talkative everybody is. But I'm going to give you a little update on what kind of programs that we have through our committee. We're going to get a Ward 1 update from our city council president, Elliot Payne. We're going to get an update on our Central Avenue Cultural District. We'll have a couple of parts of that. We're going to hear all about it, and I'd like to hear some of your thoughts about why you love this area. And then we're going to close up by talking a little bit of the Starbucks that we heard maybe coming in a block away. So that's kind of our agenda that we're going to go over today. So the first thing we'll talk about is I'll give a little rundown of what kind of programs that we have to offer. So we have a variety of them that we have. For those of you that are interested in putting security lights up outside, if you want to get Ring doorbells, any kind of security related thing, that we have rebates so that you can purchase those and we can reimburse you for those costs. We have home energy squad audits where they come out and see how tight your apartment is or your home is so that we can save you money. What I liked when they came to my house is they replaced all my light bulbs with high energy efficient ones because I would have never gotten around to that and I wasn't even expecting it. If you're thinking that it's time, if you're looking at your driveway, like I tripped over on my way over here today on my driveway, and I thought, I got to fix this thing. Well, I could use probably one of these low interest home loans so I could get a new driveway because mine looks terrible. So anything else you could think of that you want to do? They're low interest loans from 0% up to 2%, depending on what your income level is. Now we also have commercial loans. So if you have a business and you're thinking you want to expand or to grow your business, you want to clean it up for whatever reason, this is an opportunity to do that. You could inquire about some commercial loans or home interest loans. That's a really, really nice program for everybody. All right. Well, I can't wait to hear what the latest is about our Ward 1 update from our council president, Elliot Payne.
Thanks, Doug. Hello, everyone. My name is Elliot Payne. I use he, him pronouns. I represent Ward 1 on City Council, but I am also the City Council President. And so what that means is that not only am I in the community having these meetings advocating on your behalf at City Hall, but I'm also working with all the rest of the council members to herd cats around a lot of different policy ideas. That's a lot of about what the work is. Some of the updates, it's been a really busy term so far this year. One of the biggest updates that just happened is we passed minimum wage standards for Uber and Lyft, meaning if you are a driver for Uber and Lyft in the city of Minneapolis, we wanted to set a wage that would ensure that, when you drive for Uber and Lyft, by the way, it's not a set wage. It can be a 5-minute trip. It could be a trip to the airport. You might earn $3 on one ride and $20 on another ride. And if you're doing it on Saturday night at bar time, you might earn a lot for those drives. But if you're doing it at 7 o'clock in the morning on Tuesday, there might not be a lot of people getting rides. And so this has been kind of a big loophole in terms of these gig workers who are treated as contractors and hadn't had worker protections historically. And so it was a really big step for us on City Council to pass this. It got vetoed by the mayor, and we actually had enough support for this to override the mayor's veto. And the background on this is that we actually passed this last year. The mayor vetoed it that time, and then it got passed at the state, and the governor vetoed it because there's been a lot of pressure from Uber and Lyft because they really don't want their industry to be regulated. So they're putting a lot of pressure in making threats to the city. But here, at least for us on City Council, we believe anybody who works in the city of Minneapolis should be earning the minimum wage that we passed. And so We're really encouraged actually that there's a lot of new companies that are offering up to come into our market and offer this service in the event that Uber and Lyft pull out. I'm in constant conversation with my colleagues at the state capitol as they're thinking about how they want to regulate this industry. Very, very, very dynamic situation right now. Not much more to share beyond that, but we're really proud of the work that we did there. I also just got back from visiting Washington, D.C. for the National League of Cities. It's a conference that invites local elected leaders from across the nation to the nation's capital. And one of the best parts about that trip is that we set up special time with Senators Amy Klobuchar, Tina Smith, and Representative Ilhan Omar. And that's where we get to go and basically lobby on your behalf for the city of Minneapolis for our federal leaders. And so we were able to both thank them for some of the past support that they've given us for things like the Safer Streets Grant Program that is bringing in $20 million to help make our streets safer for walkers, bikers, and drivers. It's a huge amount of money that is really rare to get from the federal government, especially in a divided government. But also we're out there advocating for other requests like infrastructure projects like repairing the Nicollet Avenue Bridge or rebuilding First Avenue. And so we have some applications out for those, and we were able to go to our federal partners and make sure that we're advocating for some of those investments in our community. And then I think I'm going to skip ahead a little bit to the Starbucks conversation because we've gotten a lot of outreach to our office about that, a lot of concerns around it. And there's two things to keep in mind. One thing is that any company that is wanting to operate in the city, as long as they're abiding by our land use zoning policies, they're able to do that. And so the city can't jump in and block a company from buying a building and opening up a property, as long as they're abiding by the zoning rules. But the other thing that's really important to keep in mind is the city passed a ban on new drive-throughs. And so that building, even though when it first opened up as Porky's 15 years ago or more, I don't remember, it had a drive-through. It had since not had a drive-through when the new business moved in. They can't reopen that drive-through. So that's not going to be a permitted use, regardless of what happens in that building. And then the third thing is that at least as of February 22nd, when we reached out to our business licensing group, there wasn't an application yet for a new use for that building. So the question of a Starbucks coming in is one that is at this stage speculation, but we just don't know for certain if there's going to be any Starbucks there or any other business there. All we know is that was it the Mill before that? Half Fancy. All we know is that Half Fancy shut down their business, and apparently there might be a new business moving in there, but we don't know more than that from the city's perspective. Any questions for me?
That the city can do, oh, sorry. Hi, Molly Phillips. Is there anything the city can do in terms of protecting the cultural corridor designation I mean, does that, the fact that there's 5 coffee shops right there that are small businesses, and then here's this, I mean, cause I know I've been to cities where they've
Mhm.
kept out chains, not
Mhm.
saying that that's feasible in our massive city, but, it seems to me like the area already has a little bit of a designation of sort of preserving its flavor.
Mhm.
Where does Starbucks fall into that? Does the city have any control there?
There's no legal basis to prevent it from opening. The cultural corridor designation really is a recognition of, so there's 7 cultural corridors. We actually have Meet Minneapolis here to talk in the specific about it, but it's really about recognizing the unique characteristics of a lot of neighborhoods and specifically around the disinvestment around it. So whether it's Central Avenue here in our ward or Lake Street is another big cultural corridor, Cedar Riverside is another big cultural corridor. That's really about giving a geographic designation that recognizes the uniqueness of that area and also the inequities that happened as a result of that uniqueness, right? Like Cedar Riverside has a huge East African community. Lake Street has a huge Latino community, Latinx community, and we've had a long tradition of having a very welcoming new American community here on Central Avenue. And so really it's about channeling resources to these these commercial corridors that, as opposed to maybe some of the wealthier sides of town, like I don't want to pick on anybody, but Southwest, some of the downtown neighborhoods have historically had plenty of investment in infrastructure and support for small businesses. That cultural corridor designation really is about bringing resources to our community, not necessarily about blocking new businesses from opening. And I hope I got that mostly right. Yeah. Any other questions? And I can repeat for online.
Two of the projects you've talked about before when you've been here was the ambassador program up
Yes.
and down Central Avenue. That I know you thought very highly of that, and the mental health intervention you're
Yeah.
going to do. What's the latest update on both of those programs?
So I'll start with the Safety Ambassador program. We're in the early stages of program design and putting together the RFP. And so I'm working really closely with our Office of Community Safety as they develop the parameters around that, you know, like what are going to be the hours of operation, how many days a week. All of those details are still being worked out. And then it'll be an open RFP, request for proposal, for organizations to apply for them. So like we actually on a quarterly basis host all of the neighborhood leaders at what we call our quarterly neighborhood leader summit. And we were talking about that, and there's actually a lot of interest from some of the neighborhood associations to say, hey, let me know when that contract is live. We might want to apply for that. And so all of that still getting predetermined. One of the big operational details that is really important to our Commissioner of Community Safety is around how do you do centralized dispatch for this new capability? And so we're working with the 2nd Precinct as an example around, you know, do you have, because the way it works downtown is there's somebody embedded at the 1st Precinct who is the dispatcher. Will we still try to leverage that model, or would we want to host the dispatcher at the 2nd Precinct? Some of those types of questions are still getting figured out from an operational model. So it's gonna still be TBD when that launches. And each corridor, because it's really targeting our main cultural corridors as an investment, is gonna have a different level of readiness. So that's gonna be one of the big things that we're looking out for too. For the mental health responders, we have 3 vans out now that are fully staffed. We have purchase orders for 2 additional vans. We are still in the supply chain backlog that happened because of COVID. So it's been taking a long time to get those vans out, but they are operating 24/7 across everywhere in the city. Because they're limited to those 3 vans, the response times aren't what you would expect from a police officer during a shooting, right? It's not going to be within, a couple minutes, but they're usually there in 20 to 30 minutes. And they usually spend plenty of time with that person because a lot of it is just that de-escalation and kind of evening out the situation and helping them get into services. And it's been received really, really well. The mayor is really behind it. All the council members are really behind it. The police department is especially behind it. I'd heard from rank and file that if it ever didn't exist, they might want to quit because they're responding to the calls that are not their favorite call to respond to. They're not best equipped to respond to, and they don't really have the time to sit there with somebody for 20 minutes talking through what their crisis is before they have to get to their next call. So it's been really well received. We did a 2-year contract extension for that as well. And we're working on figuring out how do we make this longer than a 2-year contract to have it be a sustainable part of our public safety system.
We have a couple questions from the chat. One is, any news about the Central Avenue open streets type thing happening this summer? So any news on the open streets happening this summer?
So there was an open RFP process, request for proposal, that anybody could apply for across a number of areas in the city. I would have to go back to our staff and see how many responses did we get, and did we know the organization that did actually apply and get awarded that? So that's something I can definitely follow up on and get back to Thomas with.
And that was Dan Miller. You know Dan Miller.
Oh, great. Thanks, Dan.
Second question from the chat is, no matter who ends up opening the building, is there any way to preserve the mural on the side of what used to be Half Fancy?
That is a great question, and it would really depend on who the owner of that building is and what their plans for that building are. And one of the good things about being a council member, and again, the city's standard process is that you have to notify the council member in the area when you are applying for a license. That would give me an opportunity to reach out to them and understand what they're trying to do with the building so that we can make sure that you know, I don't think we can force them to keep the mural, but I think that we can have really productive conversations around how important it is to the cultural corridor so that we're preserving the look and feel of our neighborhood. And, you know, a lot of work went into that mural, and I don't know why somebody would want to, you know, paint over it.
Yeah, I had a question. I noticed that Doors Open and Art of Whirl are on the same weekend. Is there any way that in the future we can have them on separate times? Because I think a lot of us like to go to both of them, and it seems like there's such a conflict there.
That's a really interesting question because they just emailed me asking if we could reach out to our community for volunteers. And they were very excited about hosting them at the same time because they saw some synergy between Art of Whirl, which is kind of a doors open kind of experience with the open studio component of it. And, you know, so they thought it was kind of like a multiplier for the idea of going and visiting all these spaces. And for anybody in the room who doesn't know what Doors Open is it annual? I think it's annual. A number of buildings are made open to the public that are usually not available and open to the public so that you can tour those spaces. And they're usually like City Hall will do it and you can come and see the, you know, council chambers and the rotunda, but there'll be other unique buildings in the city that'll be opened up for that day for public.
Just not enough time to be both.
Yeah. And there's always like really interesting things for both of these. And any one of them is too many things to do, let alone all of them at the same time. But I think they were trying to go for the critical mass, attracting people post-COVID idea.
Hi, Elliot. Are you taking pictures on or questions on Zoom, please?
I have a question about trash.
Hold on 1 minute. Yep.
I have about trash and I'm wondering if the city has a liaison with the federal government because a lot of it is all the trash on the freeways or the freeway entrances. I mean, when I drive down and Franklin Avenue, you know, and I'm wondering, do you have any comment on that? Is there a liaison between the two, the city and the federal government?
It would probably be MnDOT, and we do have a relationship with MnDOT. And in fact, we just announced our new director of public works who oversees our trash pickup process, and they're coming over from MnDOT. So we're going to have, and our former public works director used to be the commissioner of MnDOT. So we have a very close relationship with MnDOT. I'm not sure if you emailed me about this, but I know a number of people have emailed me about particularly the
Not yet.
35W exit. And one thing I did is point them to Thomas to talk about neighborhood associations commonly hosting like an Earth Day spring cleanup. One of the things that's been really weird this year is that we didn't really have much of a winter, although I think we're supposed to get snow soon. But every spring after the snow melts, it's usually just a mess out there. And we're experiencing that here in like February and March rather than March and April.
Actually,
and I think
I don't think
Hi,
it's been
Elliot.
done.
Hey, can I
Because
interrupt
been
here?
getting progressively worse. And if I remember correctly, if you're unfortunate enough to get a DUI, those are the people who end up having to clean the embankments.
we can do some outreach to MnDOT definitely on that.
Okay, great.
And I heard
Elliot.
somebody online.
Yes, please. So we're very concerned about the encampment on 18th and Stinson. There has been no advancement on that whatsoever.
Yep.
There's trash going north everywhere in the Northeast Stinson Triangle neighborhood. What's your plans for that encampment? And then on Earth Day, I'm willing to clean that encampment if I can have a chaperone, please.
Yes. So if everybody's not aware, there's an encampment that I think is a single individual at 18th
no.
and Stinson.
Unfortunately, you're incorrect. It's now increased to 9 individuals, Elliot.
Okay. So there's an encampment on Stinson. This encampment first popped up the day that the encampment at the quarry was evicted. And so a lot of the folks at the quarry encampment did end up getting into services, or maybe they moved somewhere else. I'm not entirely sure. This is one of my big frustrations with the city's encampment response is we evict people, but don't have a place for them to go. So what ends up happening is they move their tent across the street, which is literally what happened on 18th and Stinson. I've been working with the county on this since it started. And one of the challenges with this particular encampment is at least the original individual that started there has some very severe mental health challenges. And one of the big things around encampment response is for some of the folks that have mental health challenges, substance use problems, they need really intensive case management with regular check-ins by a case manager, building a relationship with them. And when
Elliot, may I
our
have a
staff went out,
chaperone to clean that up? on
well, so
the
we put in a
table?
request with our solid waste director to go and do a cleanup there. And so that's one of the things that we actually just
It
did some
doesn't,
outreach around.
didn't happen.
Yes, it hasn't happened yet,
happen.
but we put that request in, and the city administration is working with us to get a crew out there. I think they equally have your same.
What's the time frame?
They did not give me one. This is one of the frustrations with our new government
Figures.
structure
Okay.
now is I put in the request, but
Yeah, I
city
see.
council doesn't get to direct staff on what to do. We only get to pass policy. And so one of the things we're working on is developing a new encampment response policy that gives more transparency to all of this.
How do I go
Yeah.
about getting a chaperone for that day?
I don't know that the city from a liability perspective would be setting that up, but we will have staff going out there to do a cleanup, and we have that set up. I don't know what the time frame is on that though.
Yeah, I'm a resident here at Parkway. I'm trying to see, are you fighting for us? What's your position as the city council? Because I voted for city council at the place one time, but I never saw it anymore. One time I voted and I never saw it anymore. So what is your job for city councilor? Are you for the people, or who you, or how can we get in touch if something's going down? How can we get in touch with you, said councilor? We got a thing going on here, or could you come and speak on it, or you know what I mean?
Yes. So
Yeah.
I'm here for the people literally right now in this meeting, and I try to show up in our community as much as possible. My cell phone number is 612-322-1100. Call or text me if you have issues. I try to make sure that I can respond to those issues. I try to make sure that the city as an institution can respond to those issues. I've worked with a number of folks who live in the towers with the MPHA administration around some of the issues here. And I try to make sure that I'm elevating what I'm hearing from my community to the people who can actually make a difference.
All right, thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Good day. I have a small question since we brought up activities. I was wondering if you could enlighten me on what exactly happened that the Taste of Minnesota is back on Nicollet Mall, not on Boom Island like it was proposed to be. And that was just a fiasco last year.
That's a great question that I don't know the answer to. Would any of our Meet Minneapolis folks know? Yeah, correct. Those large events are usually pretty complex from a logistics perspective. I know that the Taste of Minnesota, that was after a COVID break coming back. And I think if I were to speculate, which is usually dangerous in my job because you want to be accurate, but there's a lot of interest in revitalizing downtown and getting people back downtown and getting comfortable downtown. I suspect
Expanded even farther, but there was between Fifth and Washington, I was there the first night and the second night last year, and the first night was just nuts. The lady
very
that,
hot, if I recall.
yeah, and the lady that was supposed to meet me, she said, I said, don't even bother. I says, you're trying to find a place to park and get in there. And the second day, which was the Monday, if I remember correctly, it was still packed. And there was no place to sit. There was no place to put your food down on a table to eat. And you're just running into people. I mean, it was so congested. And I thought, geez, Boom Island is going to be spread out. You got a lot more space. And that didn't happen. I just found out today.
I can share that feedback with the right folks. Absolutely.
Cool. Thank you.
Thank you everyone for having me.
Thank you, Councilman Payne. I will, I can kind of answer your questions that he's been a wonderful representative of our community, and he's at all of our
Oh,
meetings.
boy.
So, which I'm very appreciative of. So when we meet in May, come on back so you can ask him questions. And I don't know if it was last time, the time before, the time, or which time he did, but you left some cards here, which we have some cards of his in the back. I would be glad to give you one. If that's okay, because someone might actually use it. Okay, all right. But he's here. He's been terrific for us, doing things just like this to be able to keep us informed. I think that's a real plus for us. So next thing we're going to
Hi,
do
sir.
is learn
I
about
do have a
our
question.
Central Avenue Cultural District.
I have a
And
question. One more question.
all right, we have one more question.
Yep, just what's the final answer on the encampment on Stinson and 18th? Because no one's getting answers and not getting it from Elliot Payne. Sorry.
What I can tell you what
I'm
I
not
heard.
sorry.
What I heard is that as far as the encampment, that the city solid waste is going to come down there. The request has been made to come help clean that out. As far
It's been
as
over a year, sir.
putting,
It's been over a year and there's drug needles. My
I-
kids are in danger. My
I-
animals are in danger.
I
Until there's a
understand.
murder or a
I
rape.
live 2 blocks from there, so I really do understand. The other, to
No.
answer your other part of your question, you asked about a chaperone, and my understanding is that that may not be a liability the city can undertake. So
That's unfortunate until it,
well, okay. Okay, we're gonna, I didn't know we could do that. So we're gonna hear from Jill Anderson to tell us all about our Central Avenue Cultural District. You know, and it starts with the homeless encampment. It's
I know. Yes, I am not built for politics, that's for sure. It's been affirmed. All right, we'll just go to the next slide. We're gonna have a little bit of a back and forth here with Thomas with the slides. So we'll get those moving and I'll go through this. There's a lot of detail in here, I realize, so we'll move through it fast, but hopefully it'll be interesting and educational and should be a little bit of fun in here if we get it moving. Technology. This is why I took a couple of improv classes, but I won't tell any jokes. Oh, there, I can see a little peek of it. It's going to be hard for me to present that way. Go full screen. I don't even know it on this. Doesn't even look like anything I've seen before. Slideshow. I know, I was trying to think of what I could say. All right. We'll go to the next slide. Yeah. Next slide. So what I'm going to cover today is basically who is Meet Minneapolis. It's an organization you may or may not have heard of. We'll talk about how do we promote Minneapolis, specifically how do we talk about neighborhood marketing, and then we'll actually get into the cultural districts that we are here on right now. So you can go to the next slide. So just a little bit about myself. I actually grew up in St. Louis Park, but I've lived in the city of Minneapolis for about 25 years, all different places. I remember I moved to Uptown when I was 26 years old, and my birthday cake said, Happy birthday, Jill, uptown, downtown girl. So I had my little uptown phase and I got my job at Target in 1998. One thing I didn't realize when I was growing up is that fashion keeps coming back. So all the 20-year-olds now are wearing those sweater vests. And then I started in Meet Minneapolis at 2017. So I've been there 7 years. You can go to the next slide. I live in Northeast, kind of the gateway to Northeast. So I'm right in St. Anthony, Maine area. It's a place that I've always wanted to live. As I said, I've kind of lived all around Minneapolis. You can go to the next slide. This view never gets old. I probably have 1,000 pictures of it in my phone, but really love this area. This corridor, which we'll get into, is so special to the city, but just want to let you know that I am from very close to here. Meet Minneapolis was established in 1987. We are a 501(c)(6) business association. So we are also a nonprofit. We have a pretty large staff. We have a board, and we're funded basically by the city of Minneapolis. We're a contractor of the city of Minneapolis. And then we also have private partnerships as well. And we are the sole marketing and sales organization for the convention center. So the main job that we do is to fill the convention center. That is actually a city-owned building, something that I did not know when I started at Meet Minneapolis. You can go to the next slide. So our vision and our mission really is the economic impact that comes when visitors, groups, events, sporting events come to the city. All that money that is being spent, that is not by us as residents, is all that incremental dollars that are really important to the city funding. So that's funding police, teachers, all that infrastructure is being helped funded by the visitors that we are bringing to the city. And then I have our values there as well. We are measured basically by how well we do that. So all the group room nights, those big conventions, we just had the Big 10, 2 weeks of that, all that, those room nights are how we are making sure that we are doing our job. As I said, the revenue that's brought into the convention center is how we are measured. Lodging tax, obviously that's something that we are watching. And then, as I said, we are a partner organization. So anybody that there could be a florist, a meeting planner, a restaurant, AV, anyone that wants to be involved in that tourism piece of the pie are our partners. On the next slide, that's hard to read, so we'll go to the next one. So how do we do our job? This is something that when I started at Meet Minneapolis, it's like, how do you promote a city? How do you get people to come into a city? And as I said, I spent most of my career at Target. In many ways, it's the same thing. Target's a big brand, but it has all these different brands within the store. And that's really how I see the city of Minneapolis, right? We're an entity ourselves, but we have all these great products, whether that's arts, that's culture, that's restaurants, that's sports, nature, all those kind of things. So I kind of think of it as a big retailer with all these amazing products that we have to sell. So, and one thing that we really have two audiences. It's meeting planners, it's people who are trying to bring events here, and then we have the leisure travelers. So there's two different kind of groups. But one thing that they have in common is they want to know what is there to do in Minneapolis, because you can't really be a convention or event city unless you are, this is so fun, a leisure destination. Think about the last time you were asked to travel for work or go to a convention or do something and you're like, it's in Columbus, I'm not interested in going. Or it's in a city that you don't know anything about. We have to be a place that people want to travel to in order to be a convention city. So the leisure part, all the great things that I mentioned that we know why we live here is really important on both sides of what we do from a marketing standpoint. So you can go to the next slide. One of our biggest tools is really our website. You may have been on our website. You talked about Doors Open. You talked about Art World, all those things we're promoting. But really it is, it's huge. It's about 1,000 pages. But we really write our content with that visitor perspective, right? It's not a business directory. It's not all the businesses that are in Minneapolis. It's really that local perspective. Think about the last time you traveled. You wanted to know, like, what's the inside? What do the locals do? That's the kind of content that we're putting out and really making sure that when people come to Minneapolis, they have a great time and they understand why we love living here so much. Thomas is, so this is just a selection of the content. It can be from how to navigate Minneapolis via wheelchair. It could be, how to do it without a car, ways to enjoy our lakes. It's just all over the gamut. So we really pride ourselves on making sure that if you put Minneapolis plus anything else, that we're going to show up and you're going to get that content. Next slide. Oh, yes. And so that's okay. And we've been doing a really good job. We had actually broke a record last year. We had over 3 million people visiting our website. That continues to increase. We are now finally surpassing 2019 numbers, which is really great given what has happened in our city the last 4 years in terms of COVID, the death of George Floyd, all those kind of things really making things difficult for the city. And then on the next thing, we actually are really kind of a strange, especially from my target days, we want people to leave our website. We want them to find what they're looking for, and we want them to go to that restaurant. I want them to go to the Twins and find out the schedule. We're not going to have everything there, but we want to make sure that you found what you wanted and then you actually left our website. That is actually success, which is strange from my previous job. And then, as I was talking about, neighborhood marketing is really important. When you think about travel, you don't always want to go to the downtown core. I don't want to see, just the normal stuff. You want to go and experience in the neighborhoods. So we do a lot with neighborhood marketing. It's really tricky because it gets very political. As you can imagine, what you call your neighborhood might not be what someone else calls a neighborhood. Uptown is actually not a neighborhood. It is not a neighborhood association. It's just an area. And quite frankly, it actually is south of downtown. So these things that don't make sense, but to a visitor, it doesn't matter. They just want to know where it is, what's there, what can I do there? So you can see on the next one, we continue to revise our neighborhood marketing as well. On the next slide, Northeast is also kind of a strange thing because it's this big, huge area. But once again, there's a ton of little neighborhoods in it. But we really need to look at that visitor perspective. So we do have a Northeast Minneapolis guide. We kind of cut it into art districts, riverfront. We also link to some other Northeast neighborhood information. On the next slide, we certainly have a whole thing on Art World, which is a huge driver to the city. Art's very big and just kind of adjacent to us here. Next slide. And then we'll put things in the neighborhood marketing that are important. We see a lot of things here. You have Hazel's, we have I Like You, all the different things that are actually in articles. It could be around eating South Asian cuisine. That could be all over the city. Same thing with other things. That was a lot. I'm gonna take a breath. Are y'all like nervous for me? I shouldn't have worked out this morning. This is gonna be hard. Okay, so now I'm here to what the title was. So the Minneapolis Cultural District. So I will get into that. Please ask me any questions on this. We'll get to the next slide. So I'll review the background on this. Council member President Payne probably should know more about this than me, but it's definitely still a new initiative. I'll talk about how we market and promote them. We'll go over kind of what is in the district guide right now, and then I'll take any questions. So we'll go in the background. So this is really a city initiative. Once again, we are Meet Minneapolis. We are a contractor of the city. We're a nonprofit. We're the tourism arm. But they came to us and asked if we could do the tourism part of the district. So I won't read this for you. If you want to go learn more about it, it's part of the 2040 plan. But as Councilmember Payne was saying, it's really about funding these really important areas in the city that maybe don't get the same funding as other areas, really preserving the cultural identity. Really, it's more than anything, it's just trying to get that economic boost to them. Correct. They were in the 2040 plan, yes. So there were, see here, 6 action steps, and we were the 6th action step, which was the tourism. I honestly can't speak to what has happened in the first 3, which was a lot more about partnering with businesses, the economic development, street activations. There's a great street program. Once again, I can't speak to those because I do not work for the city of Minneapolis, but what we were chartered to do was to promote them, to create that tourism piece, to get that economic, that pocketbook visitor money into these districts. I'll skip that. That's basically what we were chartered to do. You can go to the next one. So how did you do that? Which was a great question. So you can go to the next slide. This is literally what we got from the city of Minneapolis. It was the outlines of the cultural districts. That was all the information that we were given in terms of the cultural district. So that's not a lot to go on as a marketing organization, but it was a great challenge. And this was right in 2021. You can go to the next. So he mentioned these are the 7 districts. So it's 38th Street, Cedar Avenue South, East Lake Street, Lowry Avenue North, Central Avenue, Franklin Avenue East, and West Broadway. And really, if you think about all these areas, they're all in very different stages of readiness for tourism. I would say Central Avenue really is the gold star in terms of really having that infrastructure ready to bring in tourists. Some of these other areas don't really have that yet. And that was kind of the point as well of these programs, was to establish them and then get that infrastructure and that investment in there. But these are the 7 districts that were laid out. Go to the next slide. So really our objective was just to drive awareness, visitation, spurring that economic revitalization, and really cultivating that neighborhood pride. So we wanted to preserve that sense of place, provide local unique experiences, attract tourism, and then once again, you'll keep hearing that economic revitalization, getting more people to come and spend money in these areas. And really our content strategy, how are we gonna do this, was really that first person perspective. So local writers, local photographers, local videographers to tell that story. This is a lot of information. We'll go to the next one. This is marketing speak, but it's interesting because these cultural districts are so varied, so different. Even within this street, there's so many different cultures, so many different stories. So we were really intentional about getting a color palette that didn't suggest one culture, one point of view at all. So this color palette was particularly kind of muted so that the districts themselves, the stories, the people, the photography could really be what was the story. So we'll go to the next slide after that. So here's just a snapshot. It's funny, it was kind of a joke because they're photographers. I was good. Okay. So the photographers that we hired, the next one are the writers that we worked with on the cultural districts. You can go to the next one. So this is the main page of the cultural district's website. You'll see it's pretty simple, it's an overview of the districts. Each district has a page. Annual events, we talked about it, keep going back to doors open, art world. Events are the bread and butter of tourism. They drive people to the city. We've said that's been a huge part of the last couple of years in terms of especially downtown, getting people back to the ball games, the concerts, et cetera. That works across the neighborhood. So we're always making sure that visitors know about all the great events that are happening in the city. So we went off to create videos the next year. We continue to update the guides. And then we did do a paid media campaign. We right now are only marketing the campaign to just a pretty small circle. So Minneapolis, St. Paul, and first ring suburbs. If you're like me and I have a friend in South Minneapolis and they want to go to dinner, I'm like, oh, in South Minneapolis? Like, we're the worst, even as Minneapolis residents, about even seeing our own city. So we're really trying to get people even that live in Minneapolis to go and see a different culture district part of the city. So we're really keeping that small right now, especially as we continue to build awareness. We worked with a local storyteller. We have a ton of videos. Ryan Stapera knows the communities really well, found great storytellers. So he's been great. Keep going. We freeze up. We can go past that one. So last year, same thing. We continue to look at our content, photography, paid media. We're gonna get to Central Avenue here quick, I promise. You can go next one. Just real quick too, we started to do guides across the district. So going back to that idea of, there's great food all across the districts, great art across the districts. So we do have articles that really have, once again, trying to get people to explore the entire city, not just go to one district. Okay, we got to Central Avenue. You're like, are we ever gonna talk about where we are today? All right, so you can go to the next slide. So if you didn't know what the actual kind of barriers, if you will, or the outline, so it's from right here at 18th and a half up to 26th Avenue. And it really is just that block. It really doesn't, the actual designation of it does not go farther than that. Once again, I did not make that designation. We know that there's assets all around here, but that truly is the designation. I thought your question was really interesting about, does that make it a special, kind of protect it? And I think he answered it well, that that's not really what its intention is, but which is a good question. We worked with local writers and photographer. Once again, this is if you go, and I would encourage you to go look at it, it's a first person perspective. It's a narrative. It's Ollie's perspective on the neighborhood, the history, how he likes to explore it. There's a million ways you can do content and travel marketing, and we just chose this local perspective. Once again, not trying to be a business directory. That is not what we're trying to do. That does not drive tourism, is just seeing a list of businesses. I say that, and here's a list of businesses. Of course, you can't just have it just be what Ollie wants to do so we did list some other ones that are important trip drivers. We talk a lot about that in tourism. You can't just put everything there, but once you get that one thing that's so special, then they'll get out, they'll park and they'll start to explore. You really need to get those things. So we do have a list here of other businesses in the area that we feel have that kind of tourism catch to it. As I said, we have a ton of videos. It's interesting right now, the most, what would be the word? The strongest viewed videos right now are 6 seconds. And I think that says a lot about our attention span, doesn't it? Like those are the ones that perform the well. Like, yeah, 7 seconds, I can't do it, but 6, I can do that. But some great videos. We know that murals are really, really special here in this area. So we do have an article about murals across the districts, but I actually there was 4 actually here in on Central Avenue. You can go to the next slide too in that article. So we know that's also, some people, when they travel, they just love public art. That's their favorite thing. They will travel all over a city just to see the public art. And we have that, a riches of that across the city as well. Sorry, I can't do it. No, I'm just kidding. Oh, okay. Yeah, and I will leave my cards here. Once again, this is not a perfect science. If there's something on there, you're like, oh, I always take people visit in the neighborhood. I always take them there. They love it. If there's something that's missing on here, we just can't put it into someone's story. That's the thing. When, as a writer has written something, you can't be like, oh, we're just going to slip this into, his narrative. So that's why we kind of had that kind of, and other notable places, we just try to be really respectful of the writers and not try to literally put words in their mouth. So just wanted to let you for 2024, I am almost done. My throat is going to thank me for that. You can go forward. Once again, general awareness is always going to be the challenge of a marketing organization. So we have some things I'll go through in terms of what we're going to do this year. And actually, I'll just go through them. So we're going to do a map, a really fun illustrated map, just to kind of show Minneapolis is so compact. That's one thing that is so amazing about our story as a tourism destination is, nothing is literally not more than 2-3 miles away, even though it could be a completely different neighborhood, a completely different vibe. And that just makes it such a special city to explore. These culture districts are also very close. So we're going to kind of do some mapping and kind of show the visitor that you can really explore these areas very easily in one day. And we'll put that on the website. We're going to actually do some direct mail, kind of going back to the residents, getting them more excited about it, get them understanding that they may live in a culture district or close, or actually just getting them to explore them more. And that's really important. How do you get there? That's sounds so pedestrian, but really that's the hardest part of when you're traveling is how can I get there? Do I public transportation? Do I need to drive? Ride share, hopefully. So one thing that we've asked the city to do, once again, we are just the tourism arm of this, but most of these people and businesses that we asked to be in our campaign had no idea they were in a culture district. And once again, that's something that we're going to ask the city to help us with, is to be better about educating the businesses in their area that are part of these districts. Same thing when it comes to city residents. We can't do this alone. We're a small marketing organization that have to market an entire city. This is just a very small piece of our work. So we're really asking the city to do a little bit more on that. And then the other thing is wayfinding. If you've ever been to another city like New York, Chinatown, there's signage, you have arrived into a culture district. That's what we would like to see in these culture districts, that maybe wouldn't be, but an archway, imagine, that's going over 18th and a half Avenue, or signage that's telling you have arrived, you are in this special place. And once again, that's kind of outside our jurisdiction, if you will, but oh gosh, what am I? But that's another thing that we would like to see. I think that would make it feel much more special. Right now, you would have no idea that you were in a culture district. And then I think I have arrived at the end of my presentation. That was a lot. Thank you for listening to all that. I should say, I did not know Meet Minneapolis existed when I took the job 7 years ago. It's my dream job. I have been promoting and passionate about the city my entire life. And the fact that I get to do this as a job, that I get to come here today and tell you all about this has been such a pleasure for me. So I know you guys all feel that same pride in the city, and we're all ambassadors. You're all doing my job for me every day as you continue to talk about the city and the great things and the reasons why we still want to believe in it. So thank you for what you do to help me with my job. So with that, I'm sweating. Thank you. Yeah. But I would once again encourage you to go to the website. I'll leave cards if there's something that you see that you really feel is missing. We are happy to to make it stronger and better. And once again, continue to get people to see this great part of the city and spend money. That's not ours. Yeah.
Thank you. That was awesome. Thank you. And I did go to the Big Ten women's basketball tournament. I couldn't believe the number of people downtown. So hopefully they drop some money when they're there. I'd like to start a discussion about our appreciation for the cultural district. And I can tell you that so a short story, I grew up here after when I got married. We lived on Benjamin Street. I moved to Texas. While I lived in Texas, I was asked every year our group puts together a meeting, and I had to determine it was my job to figure out where it's going to be. And usually we go to Phoenix or Tucson. So I'm thinking, I want to go see my mom and dad. Let's go to Minneapolis. You could imagine the comments that I got from people in Jacksonville, in Charleston, when they're wondering, what the hell are we going to Minneapolis for? It's February. Well, thankfully I got here, and totally unbeknownst to me, it was the NHL All-Star game. So I got saved by a bunch of hockey players. So it turned out being a great move. But since then, I've come to move back and come to really appreciate this neighborhood because I live on Roosevelt Street. We can walk down here, which is awesome. I think of all the great restaurants between my house and here. We live in such a quiet neighborhood where I am, but to just go for a 20-minute walk, I'm on Central Avenue and all the cool things that are in this cultural district here. So I think that is just fantastic that I have the opportunity to do that. I'd like to know if anybody else has any thoughts about what they appreciate about the cultural diversity that we have in this Wyndham Park neighborhood and specifically our Central Avenue district. Or any questions for Meet Minneapolis? Here behind you, Nick.
I'd say the one thing my brother and I really appreciate is the food. All the great restaurants you can go to, the wide array of you can get absolutely anything from anywhere, and it's going to be phenomenal. So that's what
I
we
agree.
really enjoy, and you can walk to it. But yeah, our favorite's Maya Cuisine. Their burritos in there, phenomenal. That's what we tell people all the time. Like, if you're in the neighborhood, you got to go get a burrito from there. It's the same price you pay at Chipotle, but it's so much better. So
I agree. That's wonderful. I've learned to like all the breweries too. Got to appreciate those.
Hi, my name is Michaela. I've been living in Northeast probably almost like 20 years now. Originally from Berlin, Germany, and what I do love about our neighborhood is public transportation. Like you said, Doug, you can walk everywhere, you can hop on your bike, you can have great food, you can have live music. Maybe not in our little 3-corner of the cultural district, but Shaw's, a lot of things are for free. You don't really need to have a big bank account to find entertainment culture that we have here in Minneapolis, Northeast. So
yes, I agree. Any other thoughts just about living here and what you've experienced? Everything from favorite restaurants to favorite music, favorite breweries, or anything else. This is a wonderful spot that we live in. A wonderful little piece of the city that we live in. Anything in our Zoom group?
Just lots of thank yous for Meet Minneapolis
And no,
What would the next meeting be?
our next meeting, I think, is May 21st, our next neighborhood meeting. Yeah.
Here?
Yes.
I'll be here. If the good Lord said the same.
Yeah.
Thank you all for coming out.
You're welcome. So Thomas, you gotta.
I'm curious, I think you guys have done a great job with kind of sports and ethnic restaurants.
In the content? Oh, should I repeat your question? Thomas accurately said just the amount of restaurants, the variety, the diversity of restaurants in Central Avenue. Yes, we continue to look at the content. As I said, this isn't, those restaurants might be in actually other articles. It could be where to eat Ethiopian, where to get the mess, Southeast Asian, so it's not always just about the cultural district. 'Cause sometimes we are just writing about where to find the best food. Food is the best way to introduce a culture and a community to visitors. And the people, their outside view of Minneapolis, it's flyover country, right? So they are always really surprised. And I would say even our friend from Berlin, in terms of the cultures that are here especially in this district. So yes, we are constantly looking for ways to incorporate all the restaurants, shopping, et cetera, that are happening and things that are opening in the area.
Nick in the back.
I don't know if it's worth saying this, but I love the Northeaster. If you ever go through the Northeaster and read all the articles and about the events that take place, there's always something going on. And it's just a great source for people to find out what's happening in the city. I mean, especially like during Lent, there's all these fish festivals all over. There's just a ton of things to do. And if you can steer people just to the local papers, I think it's going to generate a lot of interest.
I agree. We looked at our Northeaster before I came over here, and my wife read to me, the Ukrainian church is having an Easter egg party on Sunday. We should go. And I thought, okay. I go there to eat their fish. All right. Well, thank you, everybody, for your comments. And thank you, Jill. This was terrific. I think we have a real jewel here for someone that remembers what the Central Avenue district was like in 1965 versus today. It's quite different. So it's really terrific. Our last topic that we want to talk about on our agenda is Starbucks. So you heard, Half Fancy, for everybody that liked to go to Half Fancy, which was me, I was very disappointed to see that they were going to close because it was one of my favorite places to go. And it was walkable from my house. So Half Fancy left. So it's now vacant, the building. I didn't know, I had an inclination because I think Molly had mentioned about the drive-through, that maybe they couldn't do a drive-through, which was, listening to Elliot Payne, was really nice to hear that, because that's what had me worried. But I'm just curious what people's thoughts are, positive or negative. What kind of a business would you like to see in that area? We have a prime spot on Central Avenue within our cultural district. Is Starbucks it? There's a lot of people that love Starbucks, not me, but there's a lot of people that love Starbucks. Maybe it should be a Caribou. People love Caribou. Or should it be something else? We have other really good coffee shops here. What would people like to see in that area?
Yeah, I think all of that sounds good. And we have many more people in this building. Maybe we need to try to gather them together and try to get them to come out.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
A lost mind is a lost thing. Put it to work. And I think you all doing a good thing. So I'm looking being here on the next meeting and finding out a little bit more about how this go. I'm a country boy. I'm from Jackson, Mississippi. So I'm seeking and I'm searching and I'm looking.
All right.
Thank you, my brother.
As far as the Starbucks space, who owns the land now? And do we actually have any say in what is going to go in there?
We do know who owns it. And when listening to Councilman Payne, do we have any influence? We could try. We've tried to contact them. Thomas has tried to contact them without getting any return calls. But we have tried, so we could share people's thoughts. if they decide to put in whatever they want, as long as they follow by the current zoning and the rules the city has, we don't have any, they can do whatever they want. But we could try. We could share thoughts and share our ideas. I think that's something a community like this could do. But they have not returned phone calls to us. Even though Thomas has been persistent in trying to find them, we haven't had any luck.
History, particularly looking back to the beginning of Minneapolis and all, and you start bringing in all this corporate where you find it on any corner around the rest of the world, aren't you discouraging the very thing that's got you unique for visitors and what have you?
I think that's what we heard, a question
Well,
to
it's like
Elliot,
letting
that same
corporate
thing.
America take over everything.
Yeah.
And with that uniqueness that this area does have, I think a lot of people are gonna say it's nothing against Starbucks, but we want to keep what we're already set up as in terms of our image and our thoughts and our history. You know,
Yes.
it really goes back far.
I think I would agree with that, and I think most of us here also would agree that we have something unique along this street, and we would like to preserve the diversity that's there and be respectful of what the founders of the city had.
Right.
You know, when my grandpa came here, we didn't have Starbucks for him. You know,
Well,
so
I think
we
the other thing you do is find out the owner's birthday and just kind of send them a lot of cakes and wish them to move on.
Okay.
Just to add to your point too, is not only the character of the neighborhood, and I'm speaking personally, not as a member. I'm not speaking for Wyndham Park Neighborhood Association, but when you have a corporation run a business in your neighborhood, it takes money from your neighborhood and sends it somewhere else. Small businesses who live here and operate here, their money stays here and it's shared in the community. It enriches our community. And I mean, it's a fact that small businesses help neighborhoods prosper. So
Hi, I agree with everything that has been said. I live a half a block from where it's gonna be. If it goes in right on 19th, I don't want to see a franchise, on Central Avenue. And I'm also really, really worried about morning traffic. I've got kiddos who walk down 19th to go catch the bus. It's already like impossible for even two cars to go. You know, it's like the highway for the Domino's drivers. And yeah, I just see in the morning, people are not going to take a left to get to Central. You know, you'll get one car through that light and it's all, they're going to go right past my house. And that worries me. I think I am glad to hear there's not going to be a drive-through. I think that'll help, but any Starbucks in the morning is a busy place. So those are my thoughts.
Well, I see let's see, no Starbucks. There's already both Caribou and Starbucks in the quarry. That's true. There are 4 local coffee shops within walking distance. Personally, that's where my favorite place to walk to is not right here. It's Northeast Coffee Shop, but I agree. Those small businesses and local is what we should be trying to support. Do we as a neighborhood really have a say in what opens there? Don't think Starbucks is a good fit, but what can we do? I don't think we can share our thoughts and to share the thoughts of the community. We can do our best to do that with the landowner. But, bottom line, can we dictate what goes there? No, we don't have, that's coming from what Councilman Payne told us. I would be very disappointing to have a corporation put into our cultural area. I agree, whether it's Starbucks or IHOP or or McDonald's. I completely agree that having that corporate kind of franchise there would not be something we would like. We would like to see another restaurant with a bar there. Yeah, boy, that would be a real plus. I'd like to see a restaurant like the Draft House that used to be in the food building on Marshall. Those are all terrific ideas. Terrific ideas. So another restaurant, a Draft House. Other thoughts on what you'd like to see in that space?
I know, kind of like what everybody else said, it'd be great to see something local here. And I guess this would kind of be my plug. Like, if you know anybody that wants to start a small business and is looking for a space, or you hear something, you should be like, hey, check out this building. The
Yeah.
parcel information, like I just pulled up parcel information on my phone for Hennepin County. Like, it's Trucco Incorporated. Their address is in Lake Harriet on Lake Harriet Parkway. Of kind of poking those people and reaching out to those owners and be like, hey, I really like your space. Could I lease it? What does that look like? And, if we had somebody from the neighborhood or someone local that kind of applied that pressure and said, I'd love to do this, I think it'd be hard for those landowners to say, oh, I don't want to turn down someone who is willing to pay me money for this property. So if you know anybody or you hear anybody, you should tell them.
What we could make sure that we do is everybody puts their email addresses onto the sign-in sheet there. If you want to email us, we will email you and make sure that any information that any information that comes to us, we relay on to the property. That might be one way.
Any other thoughts? We can kind of share some of these ideas. We'll be happy to share them. I would love to see something local put in there, or something that we could all be proud of as part of that would match our cultural heritage and the cultural district that's there now. I think it'd be great. But we'll see what comes there. I think that's it. Any other thoughts?
Yeah, I have one last thought. Hey, y'all, I'm Nick. I'm on the Wyndham Park Citizens in Action Board. I'm also a neighbor. I live over by the park. Our organization, Wyndham Park Citizens in Action, has some open board seats. And if you're interested in making a positive change in the neighborhood, please join us. We're really looking for renters to join and people that are not like young homeowners. Anyone who's not a young homeowner, we need your perspective because that's mostly who we've got. And renters would be a real big plus too. We're trying to have more meetings here in this facility because we really want to get the population of more experienced Wyndham Park residents. So thanks for being here tonight. And we'd love to have you on the board as well. Thank you. And if you're looking to oppose Starbucks, one great way to do it would be to join the board.
So thank you. And there is one old homeowner that's part of the board too. So our next board meeting we're going to have is in next week on the 26th. But after that, our next neighborhood meeting will be here, as you asked before. I was trying to remember the date, and for some reason I even guessed it right, which has stunned me now that I look at it. So it's the 21st. Everybody's welcome to a little snack. I think there's a bunch of cookies back there and some juice if you like some before you go. It's going to take Thomas about 4 days to break down all the AV equipment here, so we're not going anywhere. So if you have any questions, come on up and let's talk. But thank you for being here today, and thank you for sharing your evening with us. And join our board.